Welcome to Petros Family Wealth. Today we're going to talk about 3 different ways to avoid probate. Let's dive in. Today we're going to talk about 3 different ways to avoid probate. First one is going to be what's called transfer on death or beneficiary designation. The second is going to be a small estate affidavit. And then the third is going to be a revocable trust. If you find this information helpful, please go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on other content. Let's go ahead and dive in. The first way to avoid probate is to have the beneficiaries listed and or a transfer on death. So, as an example, 401k, IRA, HSAs, and life insurance are passed through by contract. And so if you label the beneficiaries of each of those assets or investments or life insurance, then those will completely avoid the probate process because you already have them listed. But what about the home, car, loose change in the house? Those can be designated as what's called a transfer on death, or sometimes called payable on death, TOD or POD. So for example, a home can be designated as a transfer on death, where you're similar to the retirement plan, labeling and designating who the beneficiary is going to be after your passing. If you want to incorporate on your home, for example, you would just go to your county's website, and to be honest, I do find it helpful, particularly for smaller counties. Just go ahead and call the county titling office if you don't want to have an attorney help you out with this. And it would be called a transfer on death designation. And typically there's a filing fee anywhere between $25 and $55 or so to file it with the county to make sure it's in place. For your brokerage accounts, for your non-retirement accounts on the investment side of things, you can have what's called a transfer on death, TOD. All you'd have to do is call up or look up on your investment website. If you have a financial advisor, just go ahead and ask them to put that on for you. If you are self-directed and at Fidelity or Schwab, they have their own process. So you can look at their forms and designate what's called transfer on death. As far as payable on death, that's primarily set up around banking. So checking, savings, CDs, designating those as what's called payable on death or transfer on death. Those would help transition the assets after your passing to the next generation or whoever you might want it to be. As far as charitably inclined folks, they can transition to the charities of their choice by designating those beneficiaries. And typically, to help transition those assets, all the receiving person has to do is provide a death certificate as well as maybe 1 or 2 other forms. And within just a couple weeks, transition to the next generation there. So that's the first way, transfer on death and beneficiary designations. Now the second is, what if I had all those beneficiaries listed, but I still have my car and I forgot about a checking account over here that has maybe $10,000 or $20,000. The second way to avoid probate is what's called a small estate affidavit. I would not recommend this as your primary plan, but this is more of like a catch-all, like, oops, I forgot about the car, or I forgot about the checking account that I opened years ago to get some rewards points but never really used. You can use what's called a small estate affidavit. For the state of Minnesota, they have any valuable assets under $75,000 in total. So car, checking account, all that has to be under $75,000. And if that's the case, you can use a small estate affidavit. You can find one online, just a quick Google search. Have it notarized. Go to the dealership or DMV to transition that asset into your name using what's called that small estate affidavit. Or that same thing with the bank account. You can use that with the bank account as well. So that's more of a plan B. Oops, I forgot about something and didn't have that beneficiary listed. The third option is the more comprehensive, is what's called a revocable trust. Many times a revocable trust is incorporated for a number of reasons. One, to help reduce or eliminate estate taxes. You might have some complex assets, some sentimental assets like a cabin that you want to have designated a certain pathway as far as how that's inherited. But a revocable trust completely avoids probate, also is a non-public information. So probate, it's a very public declaration of assets filed with the county, and then there's a waiting period to see if there's anybody that believes that they're a creditor to that estate. A revocable trust completely avoids that. Whoever you designate as a trustee pretty quickly starts taking over the assets and managing the assets, so either investments or the home or car whatever's inside that revocable trust, the trustee can take over relatively quickly and either liquidate or transition some of that wealth over to whoever you designated in your revocable trust there. So those are the 3 ways to avoid probate. And depending on a client's situation, we might recommend some or all in a couple of those different options depending on the uniqueness of their situation. But hopefully you found that helpful, and thanks so much for taking some time today.